decade now. I've supported one of his first Kickstarters. He was part of a podcasting group I was a part of before the realm called Pop, or Panels on Pages. We did some appearances together on their wrestling show, PCW. Great stuff. Shout out to Ernie in our groups now. I'm really proud of this. I think this might be one of the best things that I've ever recorded, and Russ was there too. And I'm umming all over the place in an intro. That's real good. I hope you guys enjoy this. I think that Dirk had a interesting path into comics that you don't usually hear about. I think that some of the talk that we do about what it takes to stay in that business is really eye-opening. This is a small hour interview, so I hope you can give it your time. And I hope you enjoy it, because if it's not entertaining, then there's no reason to do any of this. So, without further ado, the Masterpiece Shitpiece interview with Dirk Manning. Thank you guys for watching. Bye. Special episode of Masterpiece Shitpiece Theater. This is Nick Brammer, your host, with Russ the Muss, and special guest Dirk Manning, the man of the hour. How are you, sir?
Good, man. It's good to see you again. It's been a minute, so I'm glad we're getting to finally connect on the air and do things official.
Absolutely. It's been a long time since PCW.
Nice. A buddy of mine just messaged me the other day, and he said, Dirk, can you, I just realized it's like our 10 years we've known each other. And I'm like, no. I'm like, yeah. Like, part of me was like, wanted to say it was like 5, and part of me wanted to say it was like 20. Yeah. Time is just so. Yeah. There's just a lot going on these days, man. So.
And then the past 2 years has messed with everybody's perception of time.
Oh my God.
Agreed.
That's exactly right. It's like, was that last year? Was there a last year? What was going on the year before that? Yeah. So yeah, totally. But yeah, it's been a minute, and I'm glad that we reconnected.
Absolutely. Russ was with me at TFCon in Baltimore, which was the reason why we were there, and then me and you reconnected at Baltimore Comic Con. Yeah.
It's funny. That's what I've missed the most over the past 2 years is conventions. I haven't been able to do as many as I like to do. And, it gives you a chance to connect with a lot of people that are into the same stuff that you're into, and then you get to meet cool people as well at a lot of the conventions at times. And man, it's got to be, I know. Do you hit a lot of conventions? Do you have a chance to?
Yeah. During normal times before the pandemic, I was doing like 25 plus appearances a year.
That's awesome, man.
It's funny. My goal going into 2020 was, I said, by 2020 or in 2020, I'm only going to do 20 appearances. Only 20.
Only 20.
Little did I know, ended up only being 1. And then everything shut down.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah. That's true, because a lot of them were planned, and this stuff just got shut down. I mean, totally, and
yeah.
And then 2021, we squeezed a few in here and there, but it was still tough, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's been interesting in the dynamic and, like the people's level of comfort and things like that.
Sure.
Again, I think in the last 2 years, I think it's be careful about how we say this stuff, but knock on wood,
right.
I think we're getting to a point now where we're starting to see things finally kind of fall back to their normal place.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
I even hate saying that, like, but I'm doing my first con of 2022 this coming weekend, and even I found this year I'm kind of easing in. I got 1 in February, I think 1 in March, 2 in April, and it's funny. Then by May I got like 4 in May. It's gonna start picking up again. So
yeah, that's good though. That's great, man.
Now, didn't you do like 13 in a row?
My all-time record, I did at one point 13 in a row. My record was 24 appearances in 18 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. I won a bet.
Oh my God, dude. That is hustling.
That is hustling. That's moving.
Yeah, someone threatened, a buddy of mine at the time, threatened to beat my 13 shows in 13 weeks. And I said, please don't do this, because neither of us are going to like what happens next. And I had to set up a scenario that was, if someone was going to beat that, then they would really have to work hard. You know,
Absolutely.
like you really, okay, because I'm not a competitive guy by nature, unless you push me.
Sure,
You know?
sure.
And if you push me and you really try to, like, you know, I think it probably is like the martial artist in me. You know, it's like there's a thing in martial arts, like you don't challenge rank. You know,
Right,
like, oh,
right.
you're a second degree black belt. Oh, you must be pretty tough. Like, no, you know. But if someone needles you, someone pushes you, it's like, I'll show you.
Sure.
And you're not gonna like what happens next. But if you
Yep.
want to go down that path, so be it. So that was it. Someone kind of challenged, a buddy of mine challenged rank. So I did. I had 24 appearances in 18 weeks. Just kind of put the whole situation.
Amazing.
Just put the whole situation to bed. And I'm like, you know what? There.
Like,
So,
bring it on now. Come on, bring it.
I know that stands, you know. But yeah, so I've done some monster tours in my day, but I take a lot of that from my years being a music journalist, you know, and I based a lot of my career, in good ways and bad, about, like, with bands. You know, you hunker down, you release a book, you tour on it, then you go back down and hunker down, do the next book, and then you tour on it.
Sure.
And that was a big thing for me coming up. Is that's kind of how I approached the work. You know, like a band, like a traditional art, like a traditional author. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So, Dirk, how did you get your start? How did you get your start in comics, and like what path did you take into the industry?
Whew. Therein lies a book in and of itself, right? I talk about that a lot in Right or Wrong, Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. But the short version is, I was definitely one of the OGs of, like, online comics and things like that. You know, my first comic series, Nightmare World, was one of the first fully realized online comic books. And what I mean by that was, it wasn't like a 3-panel 8-bit gag strip. You know, it was like, eventually when Nightmare World went to print, it was what you saw. A lot of it was exactly as it appeared online. So that was really my start. Was publishing online, you know, and it was because printing was very expensive. I mean, this was in the dial-up modem days. Even I was doing this, but it allowed me to really get my work out there. You know, I have a lot of cash and I have a lot of money, so to me that was a as free as you could get in regards to getting your work out there.
Right.
So Nightmare World was my first series, and then just kind of kept going from there. I think my next big, I did some small publishing gigs. You know, Nightmare World got picked up by a couple small publishers here and there. But my big break was twofold. One, by developing a pretty large online following with Nightmare World, but then also eventually getting picked up by Jim Valentino over at Image Comics for part of his Shadowline Comics imprint for their online comic hub. And the joke I like to tell about this is that Jim was not really a big horror comic fan. But I had this just mountain of content. You know, I had over 400 pages of content, you know, because I just wrapped up Nightmare World Online and I was trying to figure out what to do next with it. Again, I had a couple small imprint gigs and things like that, but nothing major. And an editor he worked with was familiar with my Right or Wrong column at Newsarama. I think they said, you know, all things considered, look, this guy will promote it, he's built an audience for himself. So that led to the first 3 volumes of Nightmare World, with the 4 volumes being printed through Image Comics, through Shadowline. They eventually did not publish the 4th volume, although I did do some other work with Image. They didn't publish the 4th volume. And at that point, I really wanted to, was really seeing the potential in crowdfunding and things like Kickstarter.
Right.
So I left Image to go to Devil's Due because Josh Blaylock was really in sync with what I wanted to do in regards to crowdfunding and Kickstarter. Did that. I set a record that stood for a while over there with their highest funded creator-owned Kickstarter with Nightmare World 4 Nightmare World Omnibus. Did Mystery over there, did the first 4 volumes of Tales of Mystery over there. And have just kind of gone ever since. Now I have a home at Source Point Press, working with them. DirkManning.com is funny. I redid during the pandemic DirkManning.com, and I did my bibliography, and by year, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff here, man.
Yeah. I was like, it's expanded, right? Like crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, and originally I was going to put like the major things in there. Then I started putting in like, self-published stuff and all that. And I talk about this a lot when I'm doing a video interview or something like that, is if you look back here, I've got a spinner rack.
Right.
And my goal has always been to fill a spinner rack with my own work. And again, my metric for success is always very intrinsic, and I really have certain goals inside. Right. And during the pandemic, when everything had to kind of slow down a little bit, I kind of stopped to realize I'm like, I'm getting close.
Yeah.
And what I do is like, I'll put a graphic novel in a spot. If it's a 4-issue miniseries, I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I put the finished book in a slot.
Hell yeah.
And if I broke down my work by issues, I'm pretty sure that thing will be pretty freaking close to full right now, if not full.
That's amazing.
So, but the idea for me of doing a full classic spinner rack full of graphic novels that I've done, is kind of been a motivation for mine. And being now, again, like Nick and I were talking about a minute ago, the time we've known each other, being almost 20 years in the game now at this point, and doing mainly pretty primarily creator-owned stuff, and never having jumped to Marvel and DC to build up some potential audience that way, and just grinding it out.
Yeah,
I'm really fortunate, and I'm really fortunate, and I'm very grateful that everyone supports my work and that's worked with me. And yeah, here I am now, like I said, with Source Point Press, and just rocking and rolling. And it's weird, the last couple of years, I think in some ways I've had some of the most success I've had in my life after hitting the lowest point in my career with the pandemic and all this other stuff going on.
Right.
It's been pretty. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful.
That's life, isn't it? Ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
And the thing I like about you, Dirk, is you are 20 years in the industry, and you still talk about the hustle it took to get there, and the grind that you need in order to keep being successful. And I think that applies to a lot of different things, and I really appreciate it.
No, well, and that's exactly it. I learned very early on at Image. I did pretty decent with the first volume of Nightmare World. And I had a couple things happen personally in my life, including I had a major concussion, severe concussion. And as a result, I didn't push Nightmare World Volume 2 as hard as I probably should have. I got a little, and I hate to say this, but it's true. Part of I got a little cocky, and I got a little, I want to say, not a little cocky, it's probably not the word. I got a little complacent.
Yeah.
A lot of people, their dream is getting an eye on their book, and I had it. And like you said, I grinded, and I got there. And I got a little complacent, and the second book didn't do nearly as well as the first one. And I was like, ooh, that was a lesson I learned real quick. And I'm like, when you're making books or records or anything like that, if you're good, most people, you're only as good as your last release.
Right.
If you're really good and you're really diehard people, you're maybe as good as your last 2. Like they'll give you like 2 chances, right? But I think that's true with publishing. Not only is that true for fans of your work, like if you put out a stinker, but they're like, no, I normally like a lot of this person's stuff. That last one, I'm going to give him one more. But to the casual people, like, oh, I read that last one. I heard that last. I didn't like it. Publishing, it's the same way. If you really hustle and you really do well, maybe you put out a release that doesn't connect the way it should, doesn't meet the sales expectations, they'll say, you know what? He hustles, he grinds, whatever. We'll give him one more. We'll give you one more chance. But you're playing with the house's money.
Yeah.
And sometimes people look at, and people may argue I'm using that the wrong way, but to me, it's like, I'm asking you to invest in me,
Mhm.
you know? So the hustle is important. So I appreciate that. But I talk about it all the time. It's like, you got to build your own way. You got to build your own brand. You got to build your own house to live in, and in comics, I work with very talented people. I'm very fortunate to have the caliber of people I work with, but you got to go. You got to go. You got to work,
Now you've written about these things in a book called Right or Wrong, and the great thing I like about Right or Wrong, and I still have my autographed copy, sir, is that you do talk about this grind and what you talked about before, in an entire chapter. What was the origin of Right or Wrong? How did it come out into being a book from the column? And just talk about that for us for a little bit.
Right or Wrong started as a online column at newsarama.com, back in the day. And Newsarama back then was different than it is now. Like all things are, things change.
Right.
And I always vowed from day one that if I ever got into making comics, I would do everything I could to help other people get there too. It's just the way I'm built, the way I am. I was always like, if you get a hand on the rung, one rung above you, your other hand should be going down to help someone get to the rung you were just at.
Right.
And there's been times that bit me in the ass, pardon my French, but that's always been the way I'm built that way. I want to help people out. I want to help them get there. And so Right or Wrong was a lot about that. It was like, I'm not a huge deal. I'm not a guy who's written for Marvel. I'm not a guy who's written for DC. But let me talk about my experience in at least creating the work.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to BS you. Obviously, having a column at Newsarama to promote things like Nightmare World was also a fair trade-off. But at the same time, I never drew a dime off of Right or Wrong and Newsarama. I never got paid a lick. I think there was kind of like an unspoken agreement, like, hey, we're going to let Dirk promote his stuff, and that's your payment. That's fine. Cool, man. You let me plug Nightmare World, and you don't have to pay me a thing.
Yeah.
When I had my concussion, I actually had a ceiling beam fall on my head and almost caved my head in.
God.
Yeah. It's why my hair now normally is very hard because it's got a helmet. It's like a safety precaution. One of the things I couldn't read and I couldn't write.
I had a very similar issue, Dirk. I have post-concussion syndrome myself.
I'm sorry.
And it's not something as serious as what happened and life-threatening as what happened to you with a steel beam falling on your head. I played high school football and got a bunch of concussions, and then what ended up happening was I whacked the back of my head on a freezer door. Just getting up to get something, and that set off every single concussion I had. And I used to love to read, and it is so very hard for me, like swirling letters and things like that. So I just want to say I understand where you're coming from, and just add that to what you're speaking on.
I appreciate that, yeah, and I want to be fair. It was a ceiling beam, not a steel beam, but still.
Oh, sorry.
no, I just don't want people to like misrepresent. But and that's it. And you look normal, right? That's it. You look the same, so people don't get it. Why you look at them like they're a stranger because you're like, have I met this person before?
Wow.
Or this person's talking to me like they know me. And I got smiling and nodding, yeah, trying to like use context clues, So no, I'm sorry.
You make it,
man. Brain damage is brain damage,
Yeah.
But I did have like a bunch of the old Nightmare World stuff. I had Mr. Rhee stuff, and I had these Right or Wrong columns that I always talked about putting into a book. And I was terrified that I was just getting this momentum, right? I got to Image freaking comics. That's like the gold standard, for so many creators, myself included. I remember when Image formed and telling my parents, I'm like, this is a thing, and they're going to own their own, and I was there. And then I had brain damage, this accident happened. And again, I would meet people, and next time I saw them, forgot I ever met them, and I was proud. I didn't want to admit it, and people don't understand because you look normal. Here's this guy in the suit, and he's looks presentable and stuff like that. And inside my brain is like scrambled eggs, you know?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I worked with a very dear friend of mine, an editor, Leah Letterman. And I said, now's the time at least to take these columns and finally put them in a book. Because the stuff is done. And my biggest thing was I wanted to keep producing content, even if I couldn't produce anything new. I think I wrote, like, it's funny. I got to a point at one point where I was able to do one story. And I wrote a script for a story that appeared in a small letter anthology and then eventually appeared in Nightmare World Volume 4. And it was an iambic pentameter. Now, you might be thinking, how the hell does a guy who has a concussion write a story in iambic pentameter? It's because I've always been a Shakespeare geek. And, like, that was still ingrained. So it was a way, like, I could, like, write a script, and I wrote a Shakespeare story in iambic pentameter. But by and large, I wasn't doing much new, right? It was very difficult for me to read anything, to write anything. So I took those books together, and I said, well, now's the time to put out the book. And then the other thing, and I don't mean to be morbid, I wasn't sure if I was going to be around in a year. You know, brain damage is no joke, and it had a lot of really, you know, big psychological issues as well. And that I found out I was dealing with, you know, ended up going to therapy and stuff and trying to, you know, cognitive therapy and everything else. And you find out all this stuff, that how much it impacts your life and your behavior. Well, anyway, so I worked with Leah Letterman to put the book together. And I'd gotten to know Gary Rhee at Caliber Comics at that time. And Gary Rhee, great guy. Caliber Comics launched the careers of so many people like James O'Barr with the Crow, Brian Bendis, David Mack.
Was that where Torso was at?
Torso was there, Dead World, The Crow, all kinds of stuff, man. And he's a Detroit guy. And I got to know Gary and really well through a convention he was running called Detroit Fanfare with Dennis Barger and Tony Maiello. And he was starting a book imprint as well called Transfusion, which is going to originally be a spinoff of Caliber. Eventually he rolled it on the Caliber. And he knew what I wanted to do. And one of the other times I've ever done, I'm normally a contract monster. I'm real big on contracts and deals. But we did a handshake deal to get it started. And so I put out Right or Wrong through Caliber originally. Now, originally it was going to be this year. It'll probably be next year at this point. I'll finally be putting out like a second edition of Right or Wrong Volume 1 as I've been working on Right or Wrong Volume 2. Because in the original book, I still stand by everything in the original book. But some of the technology has changed so much. Back in the original Right or Wrong, I talk about emailing yourself scripts, you know, things like that. We didn't have digital storage. We'd have Dropbox and Google Drive and things like that. So I've gone through the original Right or Wrong and added about 33%, maybe, give or take.
Oh, nice.
Material that just builds on what's there, and then pulled out some of the stuff that's not as updated, some of the stuff that's not as relevant. But again, it to me just comes down to the idea of paying it forward, and that's probably more than you want to know about the whole history of that. But
no, absolutely. As long as you want to speak on something and are passionate about it, we want to hear it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we lost Gary several years ago, and so like I said, the book then moved from. I eventually moved the book from Caliber. I'll be announcing more about that coming out here within the next year, the re-release. But you know, again, it's paying it forward, you know, and I love that book, and I love helping people out. The panel, the convention I'm doing this weekend, I'm doing a panel, Right or Wrong. You pay it forward. You hold the door, you know, and that's just very important to me. And I've definitely learned a lot about what that looks like as you go on in your career. But you still have to find the ways to, whether if you're blazing a path, paving a road, holding a hand out, you know, pulling a hand up, doing what you can to help people, and that's important to me. And Right or Wrong 1, and then even Right or Wrong Volume 2, which is going to be about, now that you have the comic, what do you do with it?
Oh wow!
Because Right or Wrong Volume 1 is largely about how to make the book. Volume 2 is going to be, you know, I'll just pull one book off my desk here. Now that you have the book, that's your shirt, right? What do you do with it? You know, right? You know, so
that's the Tony Schiavone book, Russ.
Oh my gosh, that's the one I've been hearing about. Oh wow, it's so
Look at that
cool.
thing.
And,
That's so awesome.
I'm fairly confident this is the first original graphic novel ever advertised on cable television.
Nice.
So,
oh, that's right. I did see that.
Yeah, it was advertised on AEW every week.
Yeah, being the big pro wrestler geek that I am, that's really awesome. So
yeah, we sold out on Amazon like twice. We became number one Amazon bestseller. That's why I said it's like the last couple of years have been really interesting. I made a lot of changes in my life and my work, the way I do things, and really, it's funny in some ways. I feel like I'm back to that guy who was writing the original Right or Wrongs, and really just, but with all that experience and those lessons learned, and yeah, it's been cool. But yeah, that's what Right or Wrong's been about. Just paying it forward, you know.
Yeah.
And that's important, and I like the fact that it's cool to be known as that's part of what I'm known for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's people that know me for Nightmare World. There's people that know me for Butts and Seats. There's people that know me for Tales of Mystery. There's people that know me for Haunted Highons with Twisted. There's people that know me for Right or Wrong. And it's a cool thing, honestly, to know that people can know there's a guy out there that takes the time to help people out, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people that will find reasons to, you know, not like you or talk smack about you. And that's part of the game, too, as you go. But it's cool to know that there's a lot of people, a lot of creators that cite Right or Wrong as a way that they got in. And I have a shelf of books that people said, because I bought Right or Wrong from you at a convention a year ago or 2 years ago. Here's my book. And how cool that is to help people, man. You know, I get teary-eyed thinking about it.
Best feeling.
It's like, it's nice, you know, to be able to add to the tapestry of comics and to be able to help people that maybe wouldn't have had that way otherwise, you know.
It's almost like you have your own tree, in comics. You know what I mean? Like here's Dirk Manning, who wrote Right or Wrong, and Right or Wrong inspired so and so, so and so, so and so. So like, you're going to have this legacy that is different than people that have done, like, gone to Marvel and DC. You know what I mean? You're going to be that indie guy with bang. He knows his shit.
Yeah, I've definitely been at the front of a lot of stuff, some good and some not as good, but I guess when you're in front, that's what happens.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, sometimes you get the rewards, and you also get the shit too sometimes. Pardon my French.
Yeah. Oh no, you're fine here. We curse like sailors usually.
Yeah.
This has been like the tamest show I've ever done. Believe me.
Well, I appreciate it, but you know, but no, and that's cool. And at the end of the day, you know, I always wanted to be about the work, and I love comics, and I love what comics has done for me. I love what comics has done for my life as a reader, as a professional. So many of my friendships have come from this, and if I can put in a little bit to give back, to help other people get even a small measure of the benefit that I've had from being a part of this industry, that's what I want to do. You know, I'm good with it. Some people do that by going to church and giving a couple bucks every week, and I'm not saying I do or don't do that either, but what I'm saying is this is in my church of comics.
Yeah.
This is your type.
Well, it's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you, because in this world today, I feel like we don't have enough of that. You know, we don't have enough, I think, people that want to help somebody else out, get started or get going in anything. You know, and a lot of this world is like a lot of people. I'm successful and I'm waving to those people down there, and there's no hand reaching out. You know, so it's pretty cool. That's awesome.
I appreciate it, and I'm not trying to put myself over. You know,
no, not at all.
Not at all.
It takes time too. You know, ideally the new Right or Wrong would have been out this year, but the Tony Schiavone thing came up. And it's like, I can do this Tony Schiavone thing, or I have so much capacity, right? You know, or I can do Right or Wrong, you know, and it takes work, you know, it takes a lot of time to do something like that and to make something that's going to be lasting. So
I'm gonna get a hold of the Tony Schiavone book. I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, get it if it's on Amazon. Get it while you can. It keeps selling out.
Yeah.
Presses.com, their website. Get it from me. I'll sign it and send it. I try to presume positive intent with people and always just assume that people are doing the best they can.
Yeah.
That's not to say there aren't people that aren't and don't, but again, it takes time, and I get it, and people have to decide how they want to spend their time, and that's just. Again, I'm not trying to put myself over, make myself the patron saint of comics or comic creators. Or
no, not at all, Dirk. It's not coming across like that at all.
Bottom line, let the record show this is something I have done, and have I gotten the benefit out of it? Absolutely. Have a lot of other people got a benefit out of it? Absolutely. And I'm happy to do it. I like doing it. I look forward to continuing to do it. I'm working on Right or Wrong Volume 2.
That's awesome.
Because I wanna do that. I want to help people navigate the landscape a little bit. And I've said for a long time, Right or Wrong Volume 2 is going to be my pipe bomb book, to use a CM Punk example. I'm to a point in my career, I'm 20 years in the game, and it's like there's things people need to know that people don't like to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to talk about it, and here we go.
Nice.
Yeah, it's different,
It's like ready or not, here it comes.
Ready or not, here it comes. And
that's awesome, though.
Hopefully, if it helps a couple people out, I'll be happy.
Now, in order to be able to write Right or Wrong, you had to have some work in the can. Right. So, can you? Because I'm not sure that our audience is going to be familiar with Mr. Rhee and Nightmare World. Could you go ahead and just give us maybe a the Hollywood pitch for it?
Sure. Gosh, I guess some of my big ones. Nightmare World's a horror anthology series. 13 stories in each book. There's 4 volumes or an omnibus now. 52 stories in the whole series. What's cool about Nightmare World is every story is standalone, totally different genre of horror, different art styles. But as you read them all together, all the standalone stories weave into one giant story. The spin-off book of that is Tales of Mystery. Tales of Mystery is more of a horror noir series. We just did a Kickstarter for Volume 5, as well as an omnibus collecting the first 4. You can go Tales of Mystery, Tales of Mr. MR, then Rhee, RHEE.com. If this interview sounds good, you can go check that out and pre-order it there from our new publisher, Source Point Press. That is more of a horror noir series about, the Armageddon happens. Monsters and demons, the biblical rapture for 3 days, and then just stops. And people think, well, that was terrible, but it was 3 days. We made it through. We can move on.
Right.
Mystery's a magician who knows there's still monsters and demons left, and that 3 invasion is just the first wave of what's actually coming next. Some other big books, Hope's about a mom who moonlights as a superhero and what happens when her secret identity gets revealed to the world. I don't want to give too much away, but in the first chapter alone, she loses custody of her daughter.
Oh, wow.
Things get worse from there.
Yeah.
Twisted Haunted Ions is a really fun book about fake ghost hunters who get called the real haunted house. Buried But Not Dead was nominated for a Ringo Award 2021 for Best Original Graphic Novel. It's a collection of a bunch of different heartfelt horror stories I've written over the years. I did my story in there with Riley Rossmo's there for my time at Image from the Dias de los Muertos anthology. A lot of really cool stuff in there. Some Lost Nightmare World stories are in there. That has 9 different stories. Butts and Seats, Tony Schiavone's story. It's a biography about the life of the wrestling announcer Tony Schiavone that I wrote with him.
Man,
really cool book.
That had to be fascinating to sit down with him. I'm sure he's full of great stories because
that guy's grab a novel for them.
yeah, right. That's why I wanted the book so bad because I gotta read that just because guys like him that have been in the business that long and as much like yourself have been in the business for a while, you got a lot of good stories. He's got a lot of good stuff.
And it's interesting because the book is not really so much a tell-all about the wrestling industry as it is about a guy who started as a fan. Started working in the business, left the business, and then comes back to the business.
Right. Exactly.
So it really is his life story in wrestling.
Yeah.
But he's kind of the everyman, and seeing the whole industry through his eyes, and his job as a guy to put people over. It's been getting a lot of really positive reviews and stuff like that, so I'm really excited.
That's cool.
The book got caught up in the supply chain issues, so the book for the Kickstarter didn't get delivered as fast as we wanted, but everyone's been getting the book, been really positive about it. It's it was cool. And now, as Nick Shirt will tell you, we're working on the next one, which is I'm working on a book with Arn Anderson, the Enforcer.
That's going to be, that's going to be
amazing. My gosh, like the stories that man must have.
I can't,
And if you guys get to it, I don't know if he'll tell the story in a comic, but I want to hear his side of what happened with Sid.
It's interesting. I'm not going to confirm or deny what we're going to talk about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I'm fairly confident that there's things in the book that he has never talked about ever.
Wow. That's going to be great.
Yeah. Like there's something in the call we just did yesterday that I don't think anyone really knows. And so it's cool. But, there's things we won't talk about. But again, I think there's going to be a situation where it's about his life more than like, here's my experience with this guy. Or here's how I wrestled this match. Because a lot of that stuff's out there already. He does interviews.
Yeah.
Right? Rather, who is Arn Anderson? Where did this guy come from? And what has he learned about life through wrestling that relates to all of us?
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about this book, because again, I think it's not going to quite be what people expect, but I'm hoping it's going to be better, because Arn's got incredible stories. Here's a little tidbit, and this is how we open the book. There's only one wrestler in the history of wrestling who has a recorded victory over Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Andre the Giant. It's Arn Anderson.
Oh, I had no idea he had a victory over Andre. Wow, Andre put him. Wow.
Well, see what it was back in the day. It was in a tag match.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if Andre took the fall. I doubt Andre took the fall. But
Andre wasn't known for doing that too often.
But Arn Anderson has a recorded victory over Hogan, Flair, and Andre.
That's amazing. When you think about it, it's pretty impressive, actually.
And just going back to what you said, like that, what I asked about is the knee-jerk reaction of a fan that that knows a little bit, but what you're talking about, like what actually is the emotional tangent of his career, the things that he's learned and been through, that's what puts you into the book. That's the hook, the emotional content.
Well, you know what though? You're going to humanize them a bit, because we forget these guys are pro wrestlers. They're bigger than life on television, right? And everything, but they're people. There's a life for them outside of the business that they do, And I think we forget. I forget. I ain't gonna lie to you. I forget that.
Well, that's exactly. And like Arn's origins growing up, not glorious.
No doubt.
No, I mean, brother, you have no idea. If you don't know, I mean,
I'm gonna.
He was raised by his grandparents.
Yeah,
and that's something I think a lot of us on some level can relate to, and dirt poor, and so it's. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to be working with Arn. Cool guy, man.
When do you project that's going to be ready to go?
What's that?
When do you project that'll be finished?
Our timeline is to have that one available for pre-sale before the end of the year.
Oh, man.
I don't think it's going to surprise anyone when I say we're going to go to Kickstarter again.
Nice.
Butts and Seats was the highest crowdfunded wrestling graphic novel of all time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now the question, of course, is going to be, does Arn beat it? Tony set a hell of
Come on, Arn. You got to beat Tony. Let's go, Arn.
Tony set a hell of a record. A hell of a record.
That's cool, man. That's really awesome.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And like something that's really cool about I'm sorry to go off on a little tangent here, but something that's really cool about the Tony Schiavone book is that this dude is having such a renaissance.
Yes.
You know, you could have put Tony Schiavone on AEW and you hit a home run anyways. But the work that he's doing with JR and Excalibur is, I think, some of the best work of his career, and he seems happy to be doing it.
Yes.
Sure.
And he'll be the first one to tell you the last couple of years have been one of the best years of his life. You know, and Britt Baker stuff and all that. I mean, like getting his chest waxed on television.
Yeah.
You know, he's just having a ball. And Tony's a guy that, it's funny, when we first started working on the book, he didn't think his life story was going to be that interesting. You know, and one of the things he's talked about that really meant a lot to me and the people working on the book was that he kind of realized we did this book during the pandemic, basically, you know, getting on these Zoom calls and spent almost a year, you know, on this, was like, he did a hell of a life, man, you know, and there's a lot you can take from it. And it's just such a journey. And my hope is that people that maybe aren't inherently into wrestling are going to continue to read this book and be like, wow, this is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Touch on that a little bit. How difficult was that doing the having the Zoom calls and everything? Well, you're probably used to trying to do that in person. I'm sure. Is it a little tougher to I mean, obviously scheduling and stuff like that, probably a little bit. And,
you know, honestly, because of the pandemic and everything was so locked down.
Yeah.
Those Zoom calls in a lot of ways like saved our sanity.
Did it really? That's awesome.
And of course, when it first starts, everyone's dressed up and things like that.
Right.
And then as we get comfortable with each other, like we're in pajamas, and like I got these pajamas on right now, blah blah blah. You know, and there's a chapter in the book where he's talking about how he met his wife, Lois, and he told the story. And our editor, Drina Joe, she's like the one girl in this group of meatheads of these guys. We're all doing this. And she kind of makes this comment. She goes, okay, well, that's Tony's side. I would love to hear Lois's side, which I wouldn't have thought about. No one thought. And Lois ends up coming onto the Zoom, literally pushes Tony out of the chair, like in the book, and sits down and retells the story from her perspective. So in the book, the version of that chapter we ended up using was Lois's version. You know,
that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that really changed the direction, I think, of everything we were doing, because but so many people cite that chapter as like one of their favorite chapters in the book, and we owe that to our editor, you know, to Drina, because it's like, well, I want to hear Lois's version. That's something we never would have thought of. And it's not that the versions were drastically different, mind you.
Right.
You know, there is one thing that they disagreed about what meal they had and stuff, but it's such a human story. And even the cover, you know, the Kickstarter exclusive version is an homage cover to Kirby, and Tony's like in the position of Captain America and stuff like that. And then Maya Pascosta, who did this cover right here, the standard cover.
That looks good. I like that.
It's Tony just leaning on the ropes, all this chaos going around everywhere.
Yeah. That's
Tony. Yeah, that's the role he plays in wrestling and stuff like that. And you know, all this craziness going on, even anywhere in the book. If you look at any different chapter in the book, you know, there's all this craziness going on around Tony, and he's just kind of, you know, in for the ride, man. You know, and,
I remember during the Monday Night Wars, that's kind of what it was, craziness around Tony.
You know, he's got the real dashing look of him on the.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, man.
It just it was fun, but it was, to answer your question, Roz, it was not as difficult as you think, because a lot of us were landlocked. We couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't do anything, and that was really a way to connect and have camaraderie and friendship, and really do like I said, the achievements of that book, do a real cool thing. A #1 Amazon best-selling book, the first original graphic novel advertised on cable television, which I know these are niche things.
Yeah, but they're kind of awesome.
There's something I can hang my head on those things.
Yeah,
they're niche things that matter, though.
Yeah, and it's really changed. It's changed a lot. It's
Yeah,
changed. It again, you know, kind of being in front, leading the charge. I guess it's
yeah.
just
Talking about that again, like being in front and leading the charge and holding your hand back, you know, to bring other people along. I think that you making the point that these are firsts gives people the inspiration to know that these projects are out there and that they can do them and that they don't have to write, you know,
Right.
your typical superhero fare. You're doing biographical work, you're doing horror work. The superhero book that you're doing is completely different
yeah,
than
yeah,
anything else
Right.
on the shelves.
yes,
So these
absolutely.
are, and talking about hanging your hat on those things, I mean, you just got promoted, buddy. Let's go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, buddy. Uh, my official Source Point Press business cards, you know, Oxide Media
Nice.
business cards. Yeah, I took a position with Source Point Press as their special projects manager. You know,
Mhm.
Very cool.
it's wild. I've actually been offered titles and positions at publishers before, and including with Shadowline when I was at Image,
Right.
and I turned them down. And I
Mhm.
turned them down because I said I don't want to. I don't want to be seen as anything but a writer. That is what I
Uh-huh.
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Source Point, I still am writing. In fact, I'll be writing in some ways more than I've probably ever written before my career. But it's going to also allow me to help. I guess it formalizes like what I've been doing, like working with Twisted on Haunted Highlands, which I should mention as well. Got nominated for 3 Ringo Awards in 2020: Best Humor Comic, Best Illustrator, Best Colorist. I'm the project manager in that book. I brought the team to the book. I write the book. I work with Twisted, or with Tony Schiavone, and these other things that I'm looking forward to continuing to do and grow with the publisher. Um, I believe in Source Point. Source Point is one of these publishers that's just, they're grinders, man. They just grind it out.
Yeah.
They have that same work ethic. And a lot of the people at Source Point are people that read right or wrong back in the day, and things like that. And they're just they're people I believe in. They're people I'm honored to work with. And to a point in my career where it was like, okay, this is something I want to do. I want to really commit to this. And then they wanted me to commit with them. And I said, let's go. Let's do this. Let's really formalize this position. Let's formalize this relationship. And really just expand the tapestry of comics. So.
Now, go into the position a little bit more if you can. So, are you going to be putting creative teams on books, or like, are you like soliciting creators to, do books? Like, kind of, what are you?
I really, I got to be careful.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, man. Because this is the first time one of the first times I've talked about it on the air, and it's funny because I've had a lot of people reach out and like, hey, man, I got a special project, and it's like, not even all the books I write are special projects. They're special to me.
Mhm.
But
Right.
Tales of Mystery, for example, not a special project. The book,
Mhm.
the next Kickstarter I'm doing in May, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk, not a special project. Arn Anderson is a special project.
Okay,
Haunted
I
Highlands
see what you're saying.
is a special project. And that's not even to say all the special projects will necessarily be licensing deals with
Mhm.
other companies. There's going to be some of the stuff I'm doing within the company, to help support our creators and support people that, I can offer things to help them. But when you look at like the Tony Schiavone Butts and Seats book, there's 25 artists in this. Okay.
Wow.
I handpicked everybody.
Wow.
I put this whole
Awesome.
project together from the ground up. We talk about Haunted Highlands. I put that project together from the ground up, So will I be picking talent to work with? Yeah. Yeah. The Arn Anderson book is going to have 2 primary artists on it. I picked them, and they agreed to work on the book, obviously.
Mhm.
They wanted to work with me, and on the project. So yeah, but again, it's just an interesting evolution of what I've done. With Bunch of Seats, I was really grateful to be able to offer 25 different artists work during a pandemic.
Yeah,
That's got to be huge.
And again, it's not, I'm not trying to put myself over. I'm not like, oh, look at all the stuff I've done, but rather it's a nice benefit to be able to do that. And now the 25 people that agreed to work with me on this book can all say they're in a #1 Amazon bestselling book.
Right, exactly. They can say they've been part of it. Yeah,
they're part of the project. And to some of them that has value, to some it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I'm going to continue to organize special projects for the publisher. But again, it's very fluid. It's a very fluid thing, and
I didn't mean necessarily like with you as the writer. I just meant for the company.
Oh yeah. I mean, then we'll get to a point, and we're talking about this already, where I will be managing projects I'm not writing.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I only have so much capacity. And again, I am a writer. And there are things I want to write. And not everything I write is special. Not a special project. Everything I write is very special. You should buy everything. DirkManning.com and look at all my work. But again, like creator-owned books I'm doing, those may not necessarily be a special project, but there will be a point where in the very near future, I hope, if I'm doing my job well, that projects that maybe I'm helping organize or just that the publisher is assigned to me that I'm going to help manage because of, again, 20 years in the game. I've been doing this for a while. I've learned a lot of lessons about a lot of things, and let me help people reach their maximum potential. Let's grow the tapestry of comics as much as we can. That's what I'm about. That's what I do. And to now have it formalized with a publisher I love and people that I respect, I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited about this position and being able to
it's awesome, and congratulations, by the way. It's really cool, and I think it's probably going to open doors for you. Probably that you're going to have chances to work with people that you've even never worked with before, probably too. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
it's fun. I love that.
And yeah, right, and that's cool too. It's one of the things, like if I get fired tomorrow, I had the job.
Yep.
Can't take it away from me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
You already let me in the door.
For 1 week, I had that job. No, but I'm really excited long-term prospects of this and doing this, and
awesome.
and being able to continue to really, again, to pay it forward to the publisher, to pay it forward to readers. I at the end of the day, I really just want to help grow the industry for readers, grow the industry for creators, and help create entry points to this amazing industry and specifically the amazing stuff in this case that SourcePoint Press is doing and will be doing. And Oxford Media as a whole, Deepwater Games as well,
Yeah, right before you came on, me and Russ were talking, and I was like, Russ, you have to look at their, solicits. So we pulled up Good Boy. Good Boy.
Oh, yep. And again, Garrett's one of those guys that is just brilliant. It's and Christina Blanche deserves a lot of credit for this too. It's reverse John Wick. The dog's owner gets killed, the dog goes on revenge. And I'm like, it's like one of those 3 days and night moments, it's like, how has no one done this before? It just works. It's like, what if vampires go to Alaska or it's night for 30 days? It's one of those things where you just
you're almost stunned that no one's done it, as you just say.
And they've done it well. Man. Good Boy is so good. And they're doing the Kickstarter right now for Good Boy Volume 2, which is a good chance to jump in on that action, and
you keep making me spend money.
That's good money, man.
Man, look, he or she who dies with the most toys wins, right?
That's for
I read a quote a while back, and it's haunted me ever since. And it was like a little meme or something, and someone said, "Here I am buying books like I'm going to live forever."
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I try to read. I'm the type of guy that I try to read every day, and now I read more. You know? I mean, you can see my office. You're barely seeing like one part of this cavernous room where books are everywhere and on the floor, all over the place, you know. And it's like, oh man, it's like there's books I want to read still. There's books I want to reread, you know. And it's like, yeah, here I am buying books I'm going to live forever, and I'm like, oh, that hit me, you know, or even, you know, writing the books, you know, it's like Mr. Rhee's long form series. And,
Mr. Rhee's my favorite.
Thank you. My if I had to write one series forever, it would be Tales of Mystery, hands down.
I love it. It just,
you know, but it's one of those things where like I know how long Tales of Mystery is going to be, and if I put out a book every 2 years, how long is it going to be before it's done? And like, do I have that much time? You know, so it's like one of those things again where it's like, you know, kick myself in the ass a little bit and get a book a year out on that. But as well, things like Arn Anderson, things like Haunted Highlands, doing one-offs like Buried But Not Dead, and you know, other books like Homestead, the Werewolf Western I have coming out, Les Garner, and Cthulhu Jr. with Scoot McMahon and John Burroughs and Lee Letterman. You know, all these things.
Dirk,
and
you're a busy guy. I gotta let you know that.
I am. That's why it took so long.
That's awesome, though. Yeah.
But then I also have to remember, and this is something else that the pandemic really drove home for me, is to sit back and realize, you know, even when Nick and I first knew each other way back in the day, to now be in this position is, and I hate using this word because so many people overuse it, but it's like a blessing, you know, to be in this position and to be the point where I'm juggling this many projects, and I have a position with a publisher where I'm now going to have a higher level of expectation and to do the books and do these things and have this stuff going on and be stressing out because the book is sold out at Amazon and people are waiting for and it's like, but my God, I would have considered murder to be in this position even 5 years ago. I'd like to think I wouldn't have done it. I'd like to think when push comes to shove, I'd like to think that I'm more of a good person than not. You know, but
I see what you mean, though. It's impressive. It's good because you're staying busy. It's keeping you, you know, and you've got things going on. That's good.
And thinking about, you know, the Ringo Award nominations, things like that. Because I'm the type of guy, again, go back to that very first thing we talked about, that internal metric. And again, I think part of it's like the martial arts thing. My only true competition is myself.
Right.
It's being the best I could be. And before it was always like, well, I did this on this book, but I got to do this on this one. I got to do this on this one. I got to do this on this one. I want to, you know, you always want to out Harad. You always want to do better than your last thing. And during the pandemic and having to take some time off and really reflect on things professionally as well as personally. And I'll never forget, I was in my office and I was redoing that spinner rack. And it finally hit me that spin rack was over half full.
Yeah.
And I almost get choked up now talking about it just because of the fact that, like, it was like, damn it, Dirk. Stop for a second. And I had to, personally and professionally, I had to stop and I had to disconnect and I had to step back and reevaluate a lot of things in my life, you know, in early 2020. And like we all did, ultimately.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And it was like, man, look how much you've done.
Right.
You know, and again, I'm not trying to put myself over, but more as a situation where for any creator out there listening to this, if you've done one book, that's incredible. And if you do 2 books, that's incredible. Or if some people, man, just getting out of bed some days during the last 2 years has been incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to take stock and you got to measure what you treasure. You know, you got to measure what you treasure.
Absolutely.
And
well said.
You decide what you treasure to measure.
Right.
You know, so it's been it's been a pretty crazy last couple of years, especially, and obviously the last couple of years of building the foundation of everything came before it, and my life looks drastically different in 2022 than it even did in 2019.
Absolutely.
Let alone 2020. But yeah, just blessed, man. Just very fortunate, and very, very grateful. I'm very grateful to the people that continue to support me and encourage me, and if I can do that for other people, then that's something I like to do.
Yeah. It's overused, but that's what's up. You know?
Yeah. And everyone's got to make their own decisions. Everyone's got to make their own decisions.
Sure.
And there are people who I know who I tell them, you know what? You need to look out for yourself a little bit more. That's not to say you cut off the world, but at the end of the day, you have to invest in yourself so that you can then invest in other people, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. You're right.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, you don't want to go too deep just into yourself, and then or too deep into helping other people, because that's when things get very complicated. But yeah, absolutely. Man, what a ride it's been. What a ride it's been. And I'm looking forward to everything that's coming up.
Did I miss anything we were supposed to cover?
I'm on your show,
Yeah, I think I got everything we talked about.
Yeah, no. But, I got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, was go ahead and because we're coming right up on your time right now. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you the opportunity to talk about what's coming up this weekend, where you'll be, and all that great stuff.
Yeah, man. This weekend I will be at my first Comic-Con of 2022, Great Lakes Comic-Con, at MACOMB Expo Center in Warren, Michigan. So I'm excited. That's a really cool show. Mike DeSantis does a real nice job there. I'll be there for that. March, I have Fantastica in Toledo. April, I've got any marathons in my wasteland. May, I'm shot out of a cannon. But people go to dirkmanning.com. See my whole convention schedules up there, my bibliography. You want to learn more about me, more about my work, dirkmanning.com. I have a mailing list. I send out a newsletter once a month, and I really encourage people, throw your email in there. I never sell to anyone. No publisher has ever had access to my email list, and ever will. Once a month, I send people an email. Here's what's going on. Here's some cool sneak peeks. Here's some books coming out. Here's where I'm going to be. But aside from that, just got a lot of cool stuff coming out. We're also, I'd be again remiss if I didn't mention that I'm working with Source Point Press, again, another special project we're doing for a February horror promotion. You can go to talesofmystery.com, which is Tales, TALESOVMRRHEE, talesofmystery.com. Mysteries, like I said, one of Nick's favorites I do.
Yeah.
You can pre-order the Tales Mystery Omnibus, collecting volumes 1 through 4, with an amazing cover by James O'Barr of The Crow. Wow. James O'Barr, The Crow. One of the comics that got me into comics did a cover for my series. You can get the new Tales Mystery Volume 5. And you can also check out really deep discounts on a lot of the really cool horror books that Source Point Press has put out over the years that maybe you might have missed the first time. The cold months are here. Snuggle up with some good horror comics. May will be finally launching the Kickstarter for The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr. and Dastardly Dirk. That was supposed to come out 2 years ago. We didn't want to put out a kid's book about the end of the world during the end of the world.
Yeah.
So Steve McMahon, Sean Burris, and then Leah Letterman is editing that book as well. Really excited about that. Currently in stores, we're a couple weeks away from the last issue of Haunted Ions Volume 2. You can still get Haunted Ions Volume 1, but Curse of the Green Book. Same team, myself and Twisted, with Marianne Pescosta and Alessandro De Fornassari. Volume 1 was nominated for 3 Ringo Awards 2 years ago. Really fun book, gorgeous book. And I say this proudly, not to put anybody else down, but, as far as I'm concerned, you can look at like Haunted Ions Volume 2, and I'll put this book up against anything as easily being one of the most beautiful books that Source Point Press publishes. Marianne Pescosta, again, was nominated for Best Illustrator 2020. Alessandro Fornassari, Best Colorist. He also colored Tales of Mystery Volume 5, illustrated by Alessandro Fornassari. This book is just breathtakingly gorgeous stuff. And it's a horror comedy book. I recognize a lot of people get kind of isn't it like a Juggalo thing with Twisted? No, it's like adult Scooby Doo, is what it is. And if you're one of those people,
Kinda
when's
awesome.
the last time you listened to Twisted? They just put out a rock album, you know.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. Their newest album is a straight up rock album, and it's incredible. You know, if you check that out. So yeah, you know, Homestead, Werewolf Western coming out, Hope Volume 2, like you said, Hope Volume 1 is a superhero book unlike any other. And it was like, people are used to people like the Stan Lee hyperbole. Oh, this is a book like any. Hope is a book unlike any other. I promise you. Check out Hope Volume 1. You know, Volume 2 is in production right now with Sally Scott. Just a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. So again, I'm just very, very fortunate to be here and very happy to be here. And I look forward to continuing to offer people the opportunity to check out new books myself from Source Point Press and my collaborators, past, present, and future. And people can find me on social media at Dirk Manning, or dirkmanning.com has all the information as well.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Dirk. Yeah.
And you got it all out, right?
Oh, dude, I've been so nervous about this, but I am so happy and thankful for your time. Thank you
really
so
awesome.
much for being here, Dirk.
No, man, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad we got to reconnect at Baltimore Comic Con.
Yeah.
We're getting to talk now, and I hope we get to talk again.
Oh, absolutely.
Sooner than later. At this point.
Definitely.
Oh,
anytime that you have a project you want to talk about with us, we're more than happy. If you have projects that you're managing where it's a lesser known creative team that, you know, doesn't have that big of a following and they would like to talk to us, we're more than willing, bro.
I appreciate that so much.
You're looking at two fans of comics, and I'm more into stuff that is not how you say it, not DC and not Marvel. That's why
not corporately owned per se.
That's it,
right?
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, Russ,
yeah.
People that are watching this are looking at three fans of comics.
Yeah,
there you go.
You
go. Of course,
I'm with you.
That's a very important point.
Yeah. But thank you, man. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
And all of you listening, watching, thank you. You know, I hope you'll check out some of the stuff that I'm doing. You know, get dirkmanning.com, go to Amazon, Dirk Manning, whatever, and all the other stuff that that Nick and Russ talk about on the show. You know, buying books from creators is what allows us to keep making stuff.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate that. You know.
Yeah.
So thank you, and talking about it. So thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you, Dirk. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off and say peace, love, and hair grease. We're out. Love y'all. Good night.